Hey guys, Kyle here with Gnarly Knives. I'm going to do a review for you guys on the Smith's Tri-Hone Sharpener. We're going to talk about this while I actually sharpen my work knife. I've been carrying the last couple of weeks the Cold Steel Code 4. This is actually a really good little knife. I will be doing a review on this soon, probably in the next couple of weeks. I want to get some better usage with it, and I want to do a video comparing it to the Benchmade 560, which I carried at work for about 6 months. So I want to be able to get at least a month or so's worth of carrying with this. But anyway, though, getting into the Tri-Hone Sharpener, while I'm sharpening, I want to talk to you about a little bit about what I like about it, what I don't like, and also go into who is this for, who would this be a good sharpening setup for. Now, it is called the Tri-Hone because you do get 3 different stones on it. So what you're going to get first is your coarse stone. This here is probably, I'd say it's probably like a 300 to 400 grit. This is the coarsest. And then you have your medium stone. This here is a 600. And then your finishing stone is this beautiful natural Arkansas stone. This is between 1,000 and 1,200 grit. Alright, so what I really like about this is that you do get basically a full sharpening setup, and also at a really good price. You can get this for around $25 to $30, and this is a really good system because you don't have to drop a lot of money in order to get it. I would say this knife sharpening setup is very good for someone who's just getting into sharpening, or someone who doesn't have to do a ton of sharpening all the time. Because one thing I have noticed is that the 2 stones, the medium and the coarse, they do tend to wear a good amount. And you'll kind of notice a little bit, these do have little bows in them, which will happen with any stone. I just feel like it's a little more apt to happen with some of the cheaper stones. It does not make this a bad system at all, and the stone wearing while sharpening isn't necessarily a bad thing either. Because every time you pass the stone with the knife, what you are getting is a fresh, clean surface. So we will go into that when we get to the Arkansas stone, because this stone is not weared at all, which is a good thing, but it also has a little bit of drawbacks with it. We'll get into once we get to our coarse stone, onto our fine stone rather. Sorry about that. Now this does remove material really well, and this is S35VN, so we are getting into super steels when we're talking about this. And that actually did a really good job. I did actually have a pretty decent size nick in the blade, probably right about here, a little over halfway down, where I came into contact while I was at work. I was slicing something and I bounced it off a piece of porcelain, so it did take it didn't take a chunk out, it didn't chip, but it definitely pushed in the edge a little bit, and this actually took it right out with just a few passes. So we're going to get back over to this side. I do like this setup, and you can get these at most places. You can get these on Amazon, I've seen them, but you can also, I got this one, I actually picked it up at Walmart. So they are readily available, and for the price too, like I said, the $25 to $30 range, you really cannot beat that at all. And for what it is, it really is a good sharpening system. I would definitely recommend it. Now, it isn't perfect. The only things, a couple of just the more negative things. One thing was, like I said, these stones do wear pretty quickly. But for the price of them, you really can't complain, I guess. But I have had 2 of these stones pop out. The coarse and medium stone have popped out. I was able to glue them back in, use some Gorilla Glue. It hasn't happened since. But, just something to consider. It's not a huge deal. Like I said, just a little Gorilla Glue, and they were right back into place. I haven't had a problem with them since. I think what I am going to do, though, eventually the coarse and medium stone are going to wear away, and once those are completely worn, what I want to do is try to carefully take the fine stone, the Arkansas stone, out. And I want to build a nice little wooden box for it and be able to use it that way, because that is a great stone. The Arkansas stone alone is, I think, worth this entire unit. Is worth the price of what you're paying for this entire sharpening setup. Alright, so what else? I mean, you do get also too, you do get this nice stand with it, and the stand does have rubber feet on them. The rubber feet, they're okay, but as soon as you start getting water onto your surface that you're sharpening on, it will start sliding around. So that's why what I'll use is I always lay a towel down, just like an old towel. This is just what I use on any of my stones. Throw it on here and this doesn't move. But what I do like about it, even though the rubber feet are okay, it does give you some good height. You know, so it brings the stone up probably a good 2 to 3 inches from the flat surface. So you don't have to worry about running your knuckles or whatever into where you're sharpening. Let's see, just finish up this stone, move on to the 600 grit. Now this, I mean, I couldn't tell you exactly how many knives I've sharpened on this. I've probably sharpened on this, if I had to guess, anywhere from maybe 50 to 60 times so far, maybe a little bit more. That's just a little more conservative estimate. But I don't use this quite as often now, as I have upgraded and gotten a lot more sharpening stuff, and I like testing out. But like I had said though, this is really good, and you will see how sharp you can get a knife on this. But this is really good for someone if you just have a few knives or you're just getting into sharpening. This will last you a very long time. If I didn't have all the other sharpening stones that I use, and I just solely use this, I probably would have worn this out completely by now. But whenever this does wear out, like I said, I mean, I'm going to take that other stone out and make a box for it, but I would absolutely get this again. Especially on the price, I mean, it really is, you can't beat. And you can sharpen, I've sharpened anything from, you know, your soft, cheap HCRs and stuff like that, steels, you know, HCR 13 MOV, and even sharpened AUS8. But I've also sharpened things upwards of, I've sharpened S30V on this, now S35VN. I don't think I've done M4 on these, but I have sharpened ZDP 189, which is a bear of a steel, and this will do it. It takes longer than other steels, but it can be done. So don't feel like you necessarily need fancy sharpening equipment just because you have fancier or higher end steels. Yes, they are nice, and you can get the job done quicker with some of the fancier stones, but you don't necessarily need them. And you can get very beautiful, remarkable edges using this system here. You know, we've only been sharpening this for less, I don't know, not even 10 minutes, maybe 8 minutes. And, I mean, we're already just about done with our second stone. We're going to move to the fine stone momentarily. But these do a really good job. The stones I probably use the most on this are the 600 and the 1000 grit. The only reason I use that coarse stone is just because I had some edge damage, especially that gnarly edge roll in it from when I hit. Excuse me, I'm sorry. So sorry about that. But just from when I hit the porcelain while at work. Now, see here, we're getting really close. Gonna finish up with this stone. Get ready to move over to the 1000 very quickly. And these two, you know, I mean, if you do ever want to flatten them, they are able to be flattened. I do flatten my stones once in a while, depending what they are. I do try to just sharpen using the entire area of the stone, so I don't really have to flatten them as often, because you will remove lots of material. And this I got probably 1.5 to 2 years ago, when I was still fairly new at knife sharpening, and so I didn't quite understand as well, so that's why, like, in the middle you'll have more of the bows. I have flattened it out maybe a couple months ago. Not completely, just because it just removes so much material. But maybe I'll give it the last few passes here. Alright. And what is kind of nice about it too, even though it is a good size, I would say this is relatively portable. Even though the size of it is pretty decent, but you know, when you start, you know, like these are some of the other stones that I'll use. You start adding all these together. And I even have some other stones kicking around. You know, so I mean, this here, you're going from, you know, I think 120 grit up to 10,000. And, you know, so you got a good number of stones, the weight of it, all that. And then you have a bunch of boxes for all the different stones. These, just like this, is probably a third of the weight of all of those. And then it does have its own box that it comes in. I do have kicking around somewhere. But it gives you that good range, you know. And the thing is too, yeah, I mean, you know, this goes up to, you know, 1,000 or 1,200 grit around there. But, you know, up until probably the last year or so, that's all I never really sharpened much more than, you know, 1,000 or 2,000 grit stones, because there really wasn't a need for it. I just kind of got more into the higher end stones, just because I kind of got into mirror polishes, and I just think they're cool and they're pretty. And, you know, yeah, you know, you definitely get extremely sharp edges when you're using those higher grit stones, but I feel like for the average person, the average user, there's nothing wrong. I feel like 1,000 grit stone is perfect. With my work knives, that's what I've always done with the Benchmade 560. It's what I've been doing with this. And these get insanely sharp edges off of this stone. And you do get, and the edges last. I know a lot of that does have to do with the steel itself. But the fact that you're able to take a high-end steel using a cheaper sharpening system, and you're able to achieve those great edges, you know, because I mean, honestly, some of the higher end stones, yeah, I mean, you'll be paying what you'll pay for some knives. Some of those high end stones, you know, you're looking up $80, $100, $150 in some cases. Not that they aren't worth it, and one day I would love to invest a, you know, small fortune in, you know, probably 6 or 7 really high-end Japanese water stones. But if you're just someone who's just looking to get just good edges, or if you're just looking to try out sharpening but you don't want to invest those crazy amounts of money, I think this is an absolutely great way to go. You know, if you figure 25 to 30 bucks, and it's something, if you know what, even if you only use it a couple times a year, it's not like dropping, you know, a couple $100 on stones that you'll hardly use. You know, now I do a lot of sharpening for my, well, I do all my own sharpening, but I also do sharpening for some friends and family. You know, so for me it's kind of worth it to get a lot of those different stones, some of those higher end ones. I mean, I haven't quite, the highest I've gone on a stone is $45, which is this here. I do want to do a review on at some point. The King KDS 1000 6000 combo stone is a great stone. But that's 45 bucks. You can basically get 2 of these for that. Alright, so we're going to see how this edge looks in a minute. Now, I did forget to grab the straw with the leather and the compound. But I do want to do a video in the near future where we'll talk about the importance of stropping, and that you don't always need to sharpen your knife. Sometimes all you need to do is just grab a piece of leather, and you can strop it and bring that edge right back. Alright, so as we're getting closer, I'm going to lighten up a little bit. Don't need to use as much force. Just trying to take that burr down as much as we can. Alright, so let's see how we're looking now. I'll just dry this off, use my shirt. Oh yeah. But will it shave? So we should get the burr. Let's see if we can. Let me see. So you can see some of those hairs. There we go. So there we go. Got a nice shaving sharp edge off this very basic sharpening setup. And, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Got some good info on it. I would definitely recommend this for anyone who's just getting into sharpening or anyone's been doing it for a long time. So you guys have a great rest of your night. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share. You guys have an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Thank you. Bye.